Hi friends, it's Becky here. Let's make some sourdough pancakes. You started your sourdough starter, but every time you go to feed it, you're only saving a small portion. And the rest? If you're not using it right away to make bread dough, what's a sourdough parent to do? Throw out a piece of your baby? Never. So instead of discarding your discard, let's make pancakes. Here's what you'll need to make them. 1 cup sourdough discard, what we call the starter you didn't get to use. 1 egg or 3 tablespoons of applesauce. If your applesauce is sweetened, you'll want to put in a little less sugar. Speaking of sugar, you'll need 2 tablespoons of that, 1 tablespoon of oil, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and an 1/8 teaspoon of vinegar, which is optional if you want a little extra fluff. You're going to need milk to thin out your batter, and butter, oil, or fat to cook your pancakes. Here I have 1 cup of my sourdough discard. I've actually saved this from 3 different feedings, so each time I've fed my sourdough starter, I've taken what's left over and collected it in this pint container. 1 pint is 2 cups, so once my discard fills half the container, I know it's pancake day. But I also want my starter to be closer to room temperature, so I try to leave it out for at least an hour before using it. When you first pull your discard out of the fridge, you may notice a layer of liquid that's collecting at the top. This is called hooch, a little nod to shitty illicit booze. Remember, the yeast in our starters eat sugar and then burp out carbon dioxide and alcohol. Our excess alcohol has collected on the top. Hooch is a sign that your starter is really hungry or sad. You can either stir it back in or drain it out depending on your preference. For my discard, by the time I had left it out for a little bit, it already reincorporated into itself. So I'm going to pour this into a bowl where I will add my egg, my sugar, my oil, my baking soda. And then I'm going to give her a little stir. Combine everything together so it's nice and fluid. Don't mix too severely, just until combined. Every discard has a different behavior depending on how old they are and how cold they are. If it's a thin batter, don't add anything. If it's really thick and sticky, add a little milk, little by little until it reaches a consistency you like. Then we'll mix in that vinegar and cook up some pancakes. We'll make sure our skillet, pan, or griddle is nice and hot, and you can grease it up with some butter, oil, or fat. Add your batter. About half of the surface of the batter is going to have bubbles and the edges are going to brown. That's how you know it's time to flip. Then we'll cook it till beautifully browned on the other side. While the rest of these pancakes cook up, we should talk about how in the world these pancakes work. Normal pancakes make sense. They are a high level of liquid with a little bit of flour. So much liquid, in fact, that it spreads out your gluten proteins, so they never get a chance to really link up and create a gluten network. So how in the world do you take something that has a high gluten content that you're usually using to make bread and make it into a liquid pancake batter? Bacteria. And a few enzymes. Remember, your sourdough starter has a high percentage of lactic acid bacteria, also known as the little guys that bring you cheese and yogurt. Since your starter hasn't been fed, the bacteria have just been eating and making babies, lots of babies, which is making their environment more and more acidic. This acidity is actually breaking down the gluten bonds that were formed in the initial feeding. It's pulling them apart. So even though we have a high percentage of flour, the bonds have been weakened. Then we add more ingredients that block gluten bonds from forming. They tenderize your product. So oil, tenderize, sugar, tenderize, egg, tenderize, along with the tenderizing power of the acid in our sourdough discard, and boom, you have yummy, tender pancakes. The bubbles formed in the batter also help make our pancakes fluffy, but where do they come from? Well, in traditional pancakes, you have baking powder. It's baking soda that has a powdered acid added to it, like cream of tartar. Buttermilk pancakes usually call for baking soda because the acidity from the buttermilk will make air bubbles for us. In our case, our bubbles will be activated by the power of our acidic sourdough starter, and then given a little extra floof from our tiny bit of vinegar as an insurance policy. And there you have it, folks, sourdough pancakes. Top it with whatever the heck you want and eat them as fast as humanly possible. What are your favorite pancake toppings? Let me know in the comments section, and come back next Tuesday to check out the newest video. Or, better yet, subscribe to my channel so you never miss out. I can't wait to see the beautiful things you make.